This is Rogers TV, Ottawa.
Good evening, bonsoir. Welcome to Let's Talk Lansdowne. Welcome to those of you here in the room with us at the Horticultural Building at Lansdowne Park, and also to those who are joining us via live stream, and to those who are watching on Rogers at home. My name is Peter Engelman. I'm a community volunteer, and I will be your moderator this evening. I'm delighted to be here with you. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. And I live and work on this territory, and I'm grateful for their stewardship of this land for the last many years. And before we start the session, I want to acknowledge that there are some public figures here tonight. There are at least 4 city councillors that I'm aware of, and maybe you could just stand when I say your names. This is a safe place. Riley Brockington is here.
They're all in the corner.
Mr. Oh.
And a late arrival.
Thank you. Riley Brockington, are you here? Great, thank you. Sean Menard, also over on the left. Laura Dudas, David Hill, and I understand Teresa Kavanaugh is also here somewhere. Thank you. And we also have Senator Andrew Cardoso. Thank you, sir. Thank you all for being here. Any other councillors here that I missed? Thank you. So this event today is being hosted by the Old Ottawa East Community Association, the Old Ottawa South Community Association, the Glebe Community Association. In addition, it is being supported by 613 Flee, Reimagine Ottawa, Synapsity, Ecology Ottawa, Heritage Ottawa, and the Federation of Citizens Associations. So what brings us here tonight? All of these community groups from across the city organized this event to provide the public with an opportunity to share your views on Lansdowne and the proposal that is now being considered by City Council, which our panelists will be calling Lansdowne 2.1, and to encourage you to share your ideas with your city councillors. As you're probably aware, the revised proposal just came out. It was made public Friday afternoon before a long weekend. So we're going to start with 2 brief presentations to provide you an overview of what is being proposed. And that's just in case you haven't had time to read the more than 200 pages over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. To my immediate right is Laura Ureshaga. It's my hardest job tonight, was pronouncing Laura's last name, so I'm just going to call her Laura now. And she's a board member of the Old Ottawa South Community Association and co-chairs its Planning and Zoning Committee. And she'll give us an overview of the proposal. And Laura, thank you for being here. We also, to Laura's right, have Walter Robinson. He's the former federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And Walter is a finance guy, and he will be talking to us about the finances behind this proposal. The rest of this meeting, until 9 o'clock, will be dedicated to you. We'd like to hear your thoughts and ideas, and I'll explain how that will work after the presentation, but just to give you a heads up, we're going to ask you to be brief. We're going to ask that your comments and/or questions are short, a maximum of 2 minutes, so that you can start thinking about that now to make sure that your comments are succinct. We have a lot of people here, and we want to hear from as many voices as possible. Just be a moment. So, I think what we'll do is I will turn this over now to Laura to provide us with an overview, and she'll be followed by Walter. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for, coming out, for the people watching at home. Thank you. I realize that everyone is really here for the guy on my right, since most people are really interested in figuring out how much we're going to be spending, if we can even begin to figure that out, and whether or not we want to take this project on now when we give consideration to, many of the wider things that are happening in the city. And I realize that this is front and center in people's minds, but a lot of good work towards a more coherent and a more people-centered design has taken place in these last few months. It's not perfect, it's trending in the right direction, and everyone is working hard. So we should take a look at what has changed since 2.0 was presented. As Peter mentioned, this thing just came out Friday afternoon. I have read the entire document. That's not to say that I remember every line of the entire document. There are enough numbers here to drive anybody nuts. But I think we can start with the overview, and we can always refer to the documents wherever we need to. So let's see. Do we have the first slide up? I don't know if everyone can actually read the slide. It might get fuzzy as you go further back. So I think we can just talk about the items one by one briefly. So the event center that is located in the Great Lawn area where the berm is out there was presented in 2.0, and it's still here in 2.1. And whereas a green roof was being proposed in 2.0, now it's being shown in the renderings as a conventional roof. But if you read the documents, there are 3 options that are being presented. And those 3 options for a green roof include a lower cost option, a sort of mid-range option, and then an option for what a fully accessible berm would cost. So that would add back, if it were accessible, it would add back the green space that's being lost by having the event center in the berm. The next change is or actually a change from 1.0, but the same in 2.0 and 2.1, are the new north stands. The current stands have a roof, the suggested proposals don't have one, and they're slightly smaller, but indeed, that is one of the big things why we are here and why these changes are being proposed. It's to have new north stands that are usable for everyone. Again, in 2.0, there were 3 towers and 1,200 units. In 2.1, we have 2 towers, 40 and 25 stories, with a total of 770 units. There were, in 2.0, about 739 parking spaces for the new residences. This has come down to 336 for the residents and 35 for extra functions at the event center. The amount of retail space has come down from 2.0, where it was 108,000 square feet, to a more smaller number of 49,000 square feet. So the current area now in that parcel there on Exhibition Way is about 41,000, I think. So there would be a net gain of about 8,000 square feet. Loss of public space. So where the berm is now, of course, is accessible public space. By putting the new event center there, we remove space from the public's use, what architects and designers tend to call the public realm. And so in the previous design, we were losing 58,000 square feet of public space to accommodate the event center. And now, by removing that third tower, we've got 30,000 square foot gain back from the original loss, if that makes any sense. Originally, there were 120 affordable housing units being proposed, and that now has been changed to no affordable housing units on site, but an immediate gain of $3.9 million for the city for the Affordable Housing Fund. There were no real additional transportation changes in 2.0, and that remains the same in 2.1. There's always the need for, more shuttles and figuring out a better way to get people in and out of the site. And the public realm enhancements, we had $10 million for public realm in 2.0, and 2.1 leaves that number at the same amount. Let's see. So we've gone through that. So I wanted to look a little more closely at the slide for Exhibition Way. There we go. Thank you, Carolyn. So if we start here and we look towards the Aberdeen Pavilion, a big change in 2.0, which I think in terms of urban design is a very welcome change, is that here, this podium has been set back. If you stand at Bank Street now and you look at the Aberdeen Pavilion, you can see that the street is kind of off. So on one side, the podium comes way out, and on the other side, the podium is set further back. I don't know anybody who might have the bit of OCD that I have, but it's bothered me immensely from day one. But 2.0, and this is continued in 2.1, that podium is set back, and that allows a greater prominence and a greater focus and a more balanced focus on the Aberdeen Pavilion, which is, the jewel in the crown. So that's a very welcome change in 2.0 that has been carried over into 2.1. So the podium now is likely to be about 2 stories, and it's going to house retail. It's going to have a grand ceremonial stairs. You can barely see where it would enter here between the 2 towers, and that would take you into the new north stands. There will also be the lobbies for the 2 residential towers, and that'll sort of break up the space as you walk along towards that central focus. Now, there's a group of people that everybody may not be aware of that's called the Urban Design Review Panel. The Urban Design Review Panel is a group of professionals, and they're all, design professionals of some sort. And whenever there's an application in downtown, in a special district, or in design priority areas as set out in the official plan, the design review panel takes 1 look, 2 looks, 3 looks at the design, and it provides recommendations that help the design to evolve, to move along, and to become a better concept as it moves along. So the Urban Design Review Panel has looked at this design several times, and their input, along with the input of, people all over Ottawa, I was really surprised when I saw the city map that gave all of the places that had provided input. I mean, even further up the Gatineau, there are people who answered the surveys, sent in emails. So there has been a widespread interest geographically in what happens here, and that emphasizes its importance. So I think that between the urban design review panel, all of the commentators that have written in, input from other stakeholders, and input from the city, from councillors, from the design team itself. Staff have provided a lot of input. This has helped shift this from 2.0 to 2.1, and we've gone over the majority of the changes, but we will talk a bit now about the two towers that sit on top of that podium. So they're proposing now 2 towers rather than 3, and although it's foreshortened here, when you draw something and it makes things, depending on the viewpoint that you're taking, it makes things seem more squished together than they actually are. So there's actually, quite a bit more space between these 2 towers. And the Urban Design Review Panel had recommended that how do I say this? The separation distances are set out in something called the high-rise design guidelines for the City of Ottawa. And the Urban Design Review Panel recommended that the separation distance be greater than what's required in downtown to let light filter into Exhibition Way, so that you don't get the idea that this feels like a wall to the people sitting over here, and that the shadows cast don't make this, a dark space most of the time. So the separation of the towers allows light to permeate through. The taller tower here is set to be 40 stories, but that's not really important. The important part is that it's 138 meters from the ground up, because this could turn out to be, 40 stories plus the podium. Height. So, it ends up being 42, 43, whatever stories. But the important limiting distance is that at 138 meters. So it's not going to go higher than the 138 meters. This tower is currently designed to be 25 stories, and that works very well. You can't see that as well here, but because the tower closer to Aberdeen is lower, it helps to bring the eye as you go down this avenue towards the Aberdeen Pavilion, and it further reinforces that. So that's an excellent design move, and it's one that the Urban Design Review Panel actually met again yesterday, and I sat in along with other people from my community and other communities to listen to that, and a couple of the members emphasized how important that is to maintain that lower tower as you go towards Aberdeen. The plaza slide next, please. So with the removal of the 3rd tower, the design team took the opportunity to make this into a public plaza, and it adds the extra square footage to make up for the loss of green space. This is in one iteration. It's the very beginning of a design, and it'll go on and be developed over time. Next slide, please. So here we have the actual events center over the berm. It'll have 5,500 seats or so, plus I think 900 in standing area. And this is that plaza here, which will allow people to funnel, but hopefully as the design is fleshed out, it becomes a people space, right? Not just a place to funnel people, but a place where people want to linger, want to be. And, that'll liven up that public plaza. And here are the new north stands. Again, lesser seating than the original, and this area will be separated from the podium area here. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this looks like a very technical document, and the reason is it is a technical document. This is one of the schedules that will be added to the official plan, and these schedules are what define legally in the end what is allowed to be here. So these are also under process, but it's important to recognize that right now this entire area, which is where the podium and the two towers are, right now in that schedule, that entire area being called Area N on this document, the entire area is listed as having an allowable height of 138 meters. Whereas we know that, that's not quite what we're looking at in the design. In the design, we have here, more or less, a tower that's 138 meters, and then over here, another lower tower whose height isn't defined that I could find anywhere in the document. I'm sure that'll be corrected as the schedules are prepared. But this lower tower, of course, we don't wish to allow a maximum allowable height of 138 meters. It's 25 stories here, not 40. Next, please. There's also a bit of parking. Sorry, I leave this for a second. There's also a bit of parking. There will be about, I think it's almost close to 330-something parking spaces, some of which will happen underneath the new North Stands, and some of which will happen underneath the podium. Okay. And lastly, there's so much else to talk about. There's the public realm. That's a work in progress. That's wonderful. But, it's important to recognize that people are working hard on this every single day on all fronts, and that we need to decide what our priorities are as residents. What do we want to see here? What do we want to do here? What can we afford to do here? How do we go about that? So it's your active participation at home, whether you're in Gatineau or Orleans or downtown, Barrhaven. Everybody has to weigh in, and working together, we can help trend this further in the right direction and decide when and how we want to proceed with the evolution of Lansdowne. Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Laura. Good evening, everyone. Apart from being a former federal director agitator for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation back in the day, I did serve as Chief of Staff to Mayor Larry O'Brien for just under a year. Seems like a cup of coffee now. And I've also been a lobbyist at City Hall. I've been a lobbyist for development interests. I've been a lobbyist for pharmaceutical interests. I wanted to put all that on the table. I want to commend people for coming out. There's over 200 people in the room. There's a Senators game on. There's yard cleaning. There's a bunch of stuff to do, so I commend your interest. My presentation will focus on 5 Ps and 3 Ts. And the 3 Ts are aimed squarely at our 4 councillors there. Thank you for coming. And Teresa in the back, and any city officials that are here as well. The 5 Ps are the proponents, the proposal, the positioning, the process, and the question that Laura finished off on: what are our priorities as a city? I lived in Orleans for almost 30 years. I now live in Old Ottawa East for the last year. I love that bridge to come across here and walk through and into the glebe. And I've become kind of a 15-minute community downtown kind of person, which I never thought I would become as a suburban guy. But I really do appreciate the community if we can keep moving on. So the proponents, as we know, and I would call the 2 proponents the City of Ottawa themselves, in a partnership with the Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group. And I said this on the radio earlier this week, and I'll say it again. I believe OSEG is acting with integrity and intent in bringing something to the city. There are good community builders who are behind OSEG. I've seen some comments online that troll them. that's not what this debate is about. OSEG is using their rights in the democratic process to bring things forward and have a city debate, and that's what we're engaged about. So I think that's where we need to keep our focus. Next slide. The proposal, $419 million is what the city said it cost in the documents, the 218 pages of the city document, the 39 pages of the Ernst & Young proposal, the 26 pages in the What We Heard report, and the beautiful one, I think it's called Document 11. If you go on the city website and you read nothing else, please read this PDF, Document 11, which is a 40-year snapshot of what the city is preparing for the mayor and our 24 councillors in just under or over 3 weeks from now. But we believe, and these numbers, all the numbers that I will show you tonight are taken directly from the City of Ottawa documents. I received an email from an executive at OSEG earlier this week, and I said, I will assure you, I am taking every number from the City of Ottawa documents that are placed before council. We believe the cost is actually probably closer to $461 million, because we believe the $18.6 million of underground parking should be included, and $23 million of business interruption costs in terms of construction and things that will happen should this proposal go through should be here as well. The costs are based on something called a Class C estimate. A Class C estimate, for those who are in the facilities management world, and I had to go look it up myself on the Carleton University website, which I'm a proud graduate of. We have Class D estimates, which are preliminary, kind of back-of-the-napkin renderings and costing. Class C is a preliminary design. Sorry, Class D would be conceptual. Class C is a preliminary design, about 70% baked, 70% correct. A Class B estimate, as you get closer to initiating a project, would be 80, 85 to 90% in terms of detailed design. And a Class A estimate, and you can't fault OSEG or the city for that, Class A estimates are your contracts. Once you get proposal to move ahead and build, you go out to the community, you go out to the building committee, request for tenders, come back with your schedule of work, your supply costs. That's a Class A estimate. The reason why we signal Class C is because in most projects, and this is my opinion that I have seen in major capital projects at the federal and provincial municipal level, costs go up. Class C, because time moves on, inflation moves on, costing moves on, Class C usually goes up. I believe an opinion, an assertion of opinion, not a statement of fact, that the final bill on this in terms of the cost to taxpayers, and we'll come at how that's financed in a moment, will be closer to $500 million, $500 million. If you had a cent for every second, a dollar for every second that went by, it would take you over 16 years to get to $500 million. It's a lot of money. If we can move on. I also want to single out your ward councillor, Councillor Sean Menard, and Derek Simpson from the Centretown Citizens Community Association, along with Neil and Alexandra and Carolyn, who have helped me with this presentation. If you go to betterlansdowne.ca, I believe your ward councillor, Councillor Menard, who Sean and I don't always agree on things, and I promise I won't come after you this winter with the snowbanks if they're too high and they need to be cleared on a TikTok video. I promise that. But he's done a really good analysis called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And it includes some of the architectural changes that have happened that Laura spoke about. And I commend that too, to learn more about the proposal, because in 218 pages and about another 6 or 7 minutes, I'm trying to make numbers sound exciting for you and then listen to what you have to say. So how does the city propose we will pay for this? Let's work from the bottom up. You can't see these numbers. $320 million in new debt. Cities can't run deficits. They have to issue debt. $39 million in selling the air rights. It's basically how developers make money, because you've got to build a podium, and as you go up and higher, you get the air rights to sell to people who will buy these condos or these apartments. $51 million, we believe, in a city contribution through a debenture refinancing or debenture, and a capital fund of $18 million. And a wild card, in the motion before the two committees that I'll come to the process in a moment, $20 to $50 million of, please sir, may I have some more funding from the federal and provincial governments. That may or may not happen. If the city does not get that money, I don't know where they get it. Reserves? Increased taxation? I'm not sure. How does the city propose to pay for this? Page 120 of the 218-page document, thank you for ruining my Thanksgiving weekend, they talk about the annual city investment, the net charge that the city says will accrue to you and I as taxpayers and taxpayers across the city of $5 million a year to pay for the deficit financing, the debt. Waterfall profits, we're going to come back to the mysterious waterfall in a moment, of $6.3 million a year, a 75% property tax uplift of 3.3, new hotel tax and commercial ticket surcharge rents of 16.4. This is all revenue coming back to the city, and $5 million that we're supposed to be paying. If we can move to the next slide. Now I'm going to get out of the facts and into a little more editorializing and opinion. How will the city get the money from the federal and provincial governments? Is it likely? Not sure, especially in the context of, I'm going to jump down here, that the city is abandoning its own policy on affordable housing. I'll come back to that in a moment. In the one-page sheet, aging eyes, in the one-page sheet, Lansdowne Park, or this complex, this proposal, OSEG has 4 lines of business. They have retail, they have the Red Blacks, they have the Ottawa 67s, and another line of business basically entitled Stadium, which is all the other events and ancillary revenue-generating activities that happen here at Lansdowne Park. The Electronic Dance Music Festival, which I would have liked 30 years ago, but I don't like the thump, 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 thump on the 2 summer weekends when it happens, but it is a gathering for young people. Just under $1.1 billion is anticipated over the next 40 years here at Lansdowne Park in terms of retail, restaurants, other commercial activities. I'm going to come to that in a moment. The financial risk, the waterfall. Have people heard the waterfall before? The actual residual profits that would be split between OSEG and the City of Ottawa. The waterfall is back-end loaded. It has yielded 0 to the City of Ottawa to date. It is not expected to yield a penny to the City of Ottawa until 2027 at $6.9 million. 76.8% of the waterfall revenues that will accumulate to the City of Ottawa, based on the city's own documents, of $358.6 million over the next 40 years, do not start until 2047. I will be 81 years of age. What is it? 71 years of age. I apologize. 71 years of age. I will feel 81, but I will only be 71. And there's $3.9 million for affordable housing. There's an issue here in terms of priorities. Housing is one of the biggest issues in the country. Affordability. The city has a policy that says 25% of any disposition of your assets, of city assets and property, needs to be put back into affordable housing. Does anybody know what $3.9 million gets you? 2 beautiful brownstones in the Golden Triangle. That's what $3.9 million gets you. So I'm editorializing, yes, I think that's a raw deal, and I would implore councillors not to set aside your 25% policy for a 10%, $3.9 million uplift. And the last one, they talked about $3.3 million. There's something called a property tax uplift. The towers that will be built, not 3, but 2, the towers that will be built, the property taxes that will be generated by those towers, 75%. Can we just come back, Carolyn, 1 slide? I apologize for that. 75% on an annual basis, $3.3 million a year, would go back to pay off the principal on the debt. Let me put this into what I understand. Imagine and I paid off my mortgage, very thankfully and fortunate that I could do before we sold our house. Imagine you had your mortgage payments each year, and you had your property taxes. You pay your property taxes, and in the Glebe, some of your beautiful houses are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 a year in property taxes. Those property taxes go back to the city to fund services, transit, policing. Pardon me? Libraries, snow cleaning, maintenance. Imagine if you could have taken your own property taxes and put them back against the mortgage. Gave that money to RBC, gave that to BMO, gave to Scotiabank and said, I'd like my property tax uplift, please. What a sweet deal that would be. I think that's wrong. And the people in the Glebe Community Association asked the city and said, where is this being done? The city, I believe, came back with one other place, Calgary, in a pilot program, and they abandoned it. Shifty, I'm not sure. Let's move on. And the positioning, again, my political analysis now, my pundit, I'm a member of the punditocracy. I see Barry McLaughlin is also a member of the punditocracy. We comment on things. Then, last year, the last council, this proposal was determined to be revenue neutral. Now, let's fast forward into the future, one whole year. This proposal is now determined to be affordable. Some people think a €3,500 Hermes purse is affordable. I'm not sure on that. Then, and in the reports before Fedco last year, retail needed more day-to-day traffic. And to be fair, because I'm nothing if not fair, sometimes sarcastic, but fair, to be fair to OSEG, part of some of the poor performance on the retail side of Lansdowne, we've lived through a 3-year pandemic. It's hit every retail outlet hard. We're having a shift towards e-commerce. E-commerce is not going away. Business to business, e-commerce, Amazon, Wish, they're not going away. Now, we heard in a May YouTube presentation before council from OSEG that retail has performed well and will pay for a lot of this. I'm going to come to the question in a moment. And then, in the documents that were before the last council, they needed to invest in the stadium and arena to meet some financial sustainability requirements. I think the word obsolete was used 4 times. Now, the need to invest in crumbling and stadium arena is something 20 times now used in the document. There's a shifting narrative going on here in terms of the documents that the city is presenting towards our elected officials. I hope you're counting and watching for this as well. Please, I hope you are. Let's move on. And I'm almost done in my numbers presentation because it really is about hearing what you have to say. The priorities is 2.0, 2.1. Some people are calling it Lansdowne 2.0. I kind of like that one myself. Is it a priority? Is it tomorrow? You guys get a major report on LRT, the axles, and some other stuff. Is that correct? This week, City Council is receiving some very interesting reports on LRT and transit as a whole. It's not working. Affordable housing, I've already spoken with. Public safety in the market and other places around the city is an issue. And we can talk about the police force or not, and people policing, but it's important. And there's also, it's just not one business interest in the city. There is a downtown commerce ecosystem that is dying. I believe it is the #1 priority of our business improvement associations in the core because people are not coming back to work for the foreseeable future. We have office buildings that pay commercial industrial assessments and payments in lieu of taxes. There's revenue risk there for the city of Ottawa as well. There are many priorities, and my favorite, and I used to love looking through Auditor General's reports. In 2020, the Auditor General of Ottawa produced a report that pointed out that we have 1,073 facilities that are in need of preventive maintenance, regular maintenance, rehabilitation, and or replacement. And the question that our city councillors have to ask is, where does Lansdowne 2.1 fit with all these other priorities? To govern is to choose. City council needs to make choices. Last slide, and then I'll stop. We've talked about the priorities, the risks, and the legacy. My question is, and to be fair to Mayor Sutcliffe and OSEG, this is being positioned as a legacy to the city. Lansdowne Park as a legacy, as a gathering place, as a meeting place, as a place of commerce and community gathering. I'm not going to argue with that. I believe there could be another legacy here, a legacy of fiscal derailment in terms of the finances if this doesn't add up. The transparency, and my question here is to the 5 councillors in the room, the 20 who may be watching, and the mayor. Do you believe you have all the information you need to make a decision that will impact this city for 40 years? And I don't expect you to answer that. It's not a rhetorical question, but that's what 1 million people in this city want you to answer as you work through the next 3 weeks. My question is, do you have the information on the projected net revenues of $1.1 billion in retail activity over the next 40 years? Because in the one-pager, the stadium runs at a loss at $164.8 million for the next 40 years. The Red Blacks are projected to run a net profit of about $150 million, and the 67s over the next 40 years are projected in the city's own numbers to basically break even, lose $5 million at the end of 40 years. And then the last thing, and I wasn't going to go here, but I am. Justice Horrigan's LRT report talked about trust. Trust in the city, trust in the numbers. We've lived through an experience in the 2 largest capital projects in our city where a mayor, a city manager, and senior city staff withheld information from 25 councillors who could not exercise their legal and fiduciary duty to govern and make decisions that we elect them to make. I'm not going to answer that at the moment because I think I get myself in trouble. But have you, city councillors, have we learned from the experience of the LRT? Because this, at $500 million, if I'm not mistaken, will be the 3rd largest capital project in City of Ottawa history. Our tax dollars, yours, mine, and 1 million people in this city. I look forward to your questions, and I appreciate your indulgence of your time.
Thanks very much to both Laura and Walter for their presentations. It's now time to hear from you, your comments and or questions. I just wanted to say, if you do have questions, I'll direct them to either Laura or Walter. We also have 2 excellent resource people here, Carolyn McKenzie to my left, and we also have Alexandra McCauley in the front row. They are also back up to answer questions. Yes. Is that loud enough? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So we welcome your comments, and as I said at the beginning, this event was organized to provide you with an opportunity to share your views on Lansdowne and on the proposal before City Council, and to encourage you to share those ideas with your City Councillors. The organizers of this event will also be pulling all the comments together to share with City Council. You're welcome to share your comments tonight in English or en français, but we will not be providing simultaneous interpretation. If questions are posed in French, we have an interpreter who will then repeat the question in English for panelists. So we're going to try and hear from as many people as possible. As I mentioned, please keep your comments to no more than 2 minutes. On my immediate left, I have Brian, the former president of the Dow's Lake Community Association. He's a professional timekeeper. He will be holding up cards, one that says 30 seconds and one that says 0. So please don't go beyond the time so that we can let more people have an opportunity. The mic's set up in the center, and as you can see, people are lining up on my right, on your left, over on the walls. So please line up, and we will hear from you. If you cannot if you don't have the energy or ability to stand in line for a long time, please write a question up. We have volunteers in the audience who will come by. They will take your question or comment, and they will line up and make the comments for you. You should all have green and red cards. And if someone at the mic is speaking and says something that you agree with or you support, feel free to hold up your green card. If you don't support it or are opposed to it, you can hold up a red card. We're trying to get some sense as to how you, as an audience, feel. Obviously, if you're getting green cards like the ones we're seeing, make... All right. So we'll also, as I said, have a few questions for you throughout the evening. And if you agree with the question that we pose to you, please hold up a green card. Obviously, if you don't, hold up the red card. For those of you watching from afar, our friends at Synapse City are live tweeting this evening, so you're also welcome to join the conversation that way as well. So I think people are set up, so let's get this started with comments from the audience.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentations. My name is Toby Sanger. I'm a local resident, but I'm also an economist with 3 more decades of experience with particular expertise in municipal finance and public-private partnerships. I read through the report, and I have to say I just started to roll my eyes. It's once again an attempt to create a crisis to fleece the residents and taxpayers of this city of hundreds of millions of dollars that are going to go to the wealthiest developers in the city. As Will Rogers said, money doesn't trickle down, it trickles up. This is not just a trickle down, this is not just a trickle up of money, it's a waterfall up of money. It would bring the total bill for Lansdowne to close to $1 billion. How much is that? That's about $1,000 for every resident of this city. The report describes it as a resounding success. We would not be here if it was a resounding success. This is the third time. This is the third time that the city has come back to us for hundreds of millions of dollars to subsidize the private developers. Yes, there are some nice bits of it, but it's the public bits. The private bits have been a failure. Instead, this proposal would significantly reduce public green space, significantly reduce seating for sports, significantly reduce, in both the arena and the stadium, significant increase in prices from what I read. It would destroy the Civic Centre, which I think is a nice piece of architecture, which has lasted well. The report says that that there's functional obsolescence of the Civic Centre. So what does that mean? It means lack of accessible features, operation and financial difficulties, non-compliance with building codes. Anything that was built 50 years ago is non-compliant with these building codes. There's a Morrison-Hirschfield report that said that it would cost $25 million over 30 years to repair the Civic Centre. Why then is the city coming to us to spend $500 million when those problems could be fixed for $25 million? What are they going to provide? 35 more parking spots for accessibility functions, and $3.9 million for affordable housing. That's less than 1% of what we are effectively subsidizing private developers for. Property tax uplift, that's BS. That is total BS to use that as revenue, because as our friend there said, I built a house a dozen years ago. Are my property taxes subsidizing my mortgage? I think this is a disgrace. In fact, the arena looks like a bit of a turd, and that's what it is.
Okay. Next person, please. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Sanger. Let's really try to keep to the 2 minutes, please, everyone. You're next.
Good evening. Thank you for the great presentation. My name is Sven Novotny. I've been a resident of the Glebe for 50 years, living in the same house for 37 years. I've moved away and I've come back, and we have the best neighborhood in the city, which is the Glebe. It is so important, and we are here in a special place, and it's called Lansdowne Park. And what is the second word? It's park. Okay, and that's what we're supposed to be treating it. So I do thank you for the presentation, the numbers, but we are really supporting here 700 condo units. It is a condo project and retail project. We have such wonderful things like Flea Market 613. We need community events here, not more condo units. I live very close to the perimeter of Lansdowne Park, and my house was destroyed. Many windows were broken from the construction in the past. And what did the city say? Call your insurance. It was a long, long battle. So, ladies and gentlemen, I propose that we scrap this idea of the 2 condo towers. If you agree with me, please stand up. Please stand up if you agree with me that we cancel this project. It's a very big decision for the city of Ottawa. It's a very big decision. It's a very big decision for our councillors. Thank you very much.
Build it themselves. No taxpayers' money.
Thank you.
All right. Just before the next question, Laura has a comment.
I do want to clarify one thing, having read through the report. Based on, research and everything else, and the parking component ratio being different for condos than rental units, the 2 towers are proposed to be custom-built, purpose-built rental units, not condominiums, just so that we're all clear and fair.
It's not that, it's the money we're spending.
Okay.
No, I understand that, but, we should all be on the same level base of understanding.
All right. Next question, please. Thank you.
So if you'll forgive me, I'm going to read my presentation. And I want to start out by saying, let's talk turkey, since it's just Thanksgiving. This proposal has 2 purposes. 1, to keep a money-losing team on the field, and 2, to let a developer build a hotel or condos or possibly some apartments, and that's what it says, Laura, on parkland, not surplus, bought from the city. Several expenses are guesstimates, and several, among them removal and treatment of soil from the berm, purchase of a retail podium only to lease it back to OSAG, 140 parking spaces, and debt servicing, do not appear in the estimates, so we don't even know the real cost of this project to Ottawa citizens. Can we rely on these estimates? When those for Lansdowne 1 were wildly optimistic, is this a wise or diligent, if you will, use of city money? Ottawa has declared housing and homelessness crisis. Talk to the people who slept rough all summer. We built about 64 public housing units last year. Talk to our neighbors who can no longer afford to live in our neighborhoods because they can't find affordable apartments. What young people these days spend 30% of their income on housing? We have a declared climate emergency. How many trees could we plant for $400 million? Talk to seniors. Tomorrow night in this very building, Abbotsford House, our local senior center designed to keep seniors in their homes, is holding a fundraiser. Why? Because the city no longer supports its programming. We were told there wasn't enough money to meet the demands for worthy, supportive programming. Talk to our kids who can't get ice time because we have too few ice surfaces, or rinks are out of service, or they've lost the boards. We won't have an Ottawa Girls Hockey Association senior team because they couldn't find ice time. Talk to parents who can't afford programs for their kids because fees are too high. Our downtown Y pool is closing. Where will kids learn to swim? When did the city last build a pool? Residents in a neighboring ward are being asked to choose between green space for community parking and a school. Or just think about the last time your bones rattled because your car or bicycle dropped into one of our infamous potholes. Think about what our city could do with the money we're being asked to spend on high-end professional sports and entertainment facilities for the few who could afford the increased ticket prices. Can we not think of more necessary things on which to spend our tax dollars? Is this real choice?
Speaker, please really try and keep, there's a lot of people who want to talk, so let's really try and keep it to 2 minutes or less.
You're the moderator, sir. Cut him off.
I may be part of the cancel culture here. No green cards, please. One of the things that bothers me, it's Ken Rubin, is that OSAG and the city have never responded to my requests to what the hell they're actually doing. All I see up here is a shifting narrative, and I never bought 1.0, 2.0, 2.1, whatever. So I think there's a problem. But let me just illustrate what my main hang-up is I like the fact that I'm in a room, it's airy, I like the Aberdeen Pavilion, I like parts of this park, I like the grass and stuff. But when I see an underground bunker, a big bathtub upside down being proposed as an arena for $250 million, and my civic pride just goes, well, down. And I think that the problem is with the two towers misplaced, oh yes, they go downwards. It's just a hocus pocus. It's ruining the park if it hasn't already. So I'm not going to talk very much longer. I'm just going to say that the information is not totally here. And I mean, when you get, as Walter said, a one-page document, document 11 and 218 pages that sort of talks Turkey finances, you know you're being sold a bill of goods. So please do not raise your green cards. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, Walter has a quick comment.
Ken, thank you for all the work you've done over the years on FOI and ATIP and trying to hold all orders of government accountable. When I was at the Taxpayers Federation, I used you as a model to put in a lot of DriftNet requests to different departments. But this is an important point you make, and it comes back to the $1.1 billion that are forecast over the next 40 years in the retail. And if it goes ahead, I pray to God that they actually make that money. And I would ask councillors to ask, where are those assumptions? There's some cryptic language in the E&Y report, but it's not there. This is not intellectual property of a new medicine or a new iPhone. And even if you have to go behind closed doors and in camera, but at least we can try and ATIP it or FOIP it, what is driving those numbers? Because that is the only component of this proposal that the city is bringing towards council that will actually result in any of the waterfall revenues that are forecast to come. I remember 76.8% in the last 25% of the project. Where are those assumptions? Please, in your committee meetings and at council, ask, where the hell are those numbers coming from? Please and thank you.
Go ahead. Next question.
Hi, this is a simple question about transparency, which follows from this discussion, which is there a basis in Canadian law for claiming, as the city does, that commercial deals are and must be secret? Why and how can that be changed if it is a policy that can be changed? I've never heard of something where you sign a deal with someone, but you can't know what it is. It's our deal, and we should know what it is. So I really would like somebody to open up the secret chambers of our city, because that's where corruption hides.
It's standard practice across all three orders of government. I appreciate your frustration. I'm not defending the city, but commercial deals are confidential, from vaccine contracts to procurement deals to fighter jets, even to local deals. There is actually, to be fair, at the municipal level, there's probably greater transparency in most commercial contracts than there are, that's putting the bar low, but than there are at the federal and provincial orders of government.
Next question. Thank you.
Hi, Alan Freeman. I'm a longtime resident of the Glebe. First of all, I think we should all remember why we're here. We're here because the Lansdowne project, originally designed by OSAG and the City of Ottawa, has been a failure, an abject failure, an urban catastrophe. Everything, and we all knew it. Most of the people here, this is not our first rodeo. We've been at these meetings telling them this was a bad idea. And what the City of Ottawa delivered to us was a bad idea, poorly executed. That's what we see when we walk through this sort of shadow of a mall. And I want to ask Walter one question about this. I find it unbelievable that these people who really can't rent the current place plan to add retail space. And have you looked up and down Bank Street? We get new buildings, new empties, we get new condo buildings, and we have more vacancies. What is the market for retail in this community? We can't. Rideau Center, which is owned by, has empty space, as you're saying. And if this was a failure before the pandemic. And so what we have now, do we know? What is Whole Foods paying? What sort of rent rebates are they getting just to make it seem as if there is some life in this place? Do we have any idea? How long is that cinema going to be here? Or are we going to sign off on a new agreement and they're all going to leave? And then we're going to be stuck with even more retail space that's empty, ruining our Bank Street. I mean, what do we know about the current state of that mall in terms of empties, what the rent is actually being paid? Yeah.
That's your question.
Thank you.
Alan, I can't, which is why I asked the councillors here and their colleagues in November 2nd, before a report goes to committee on November the 10th, what are underlying these assumptions? How is that going to, and I mean, you're forecasting well into the future. What will retail look like in the next 40 years? I don't know the answer. But within OSEG, there are some people who have run shopping centres, so they should have some capacity to forecast that. And we need to know those answers. I would hope councillors ask those questions.
Please proceed.
I would like to begin by commenting on the supposedly extensive consultative process. And I want to point out that this process, mostly 99%, does not deal with the most important issues. Most of it is in the direction of presupposition that this whole thing is worthwhile. Well, it isn't worthwhile. And you've made points about money. The LRT could be much worse of a disaster than it is. Where will the money come from? We need LRT. We don't need some of the things that are proposed. We have to watch our finances. So the other thing is the aesthetics. I look at the picture of these high-rises and I look, what is that going to do to the whole park-like appearance? What's going to happen to the future of the park? Taking away one of the high-rise doesn't do it. You've got to get rid of both of them. You're going to have a whole population moving in there that will have their own needs, their own social. They will be the ones using the park, maybe, but they'll view the rest of us as intruders. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But that's the feeling I get, that you have this dominant thing, two big high-rises there. I think I've made the points about money and aesthetics. We have to be prudent about our expenses, given the failure of the LRT. We need buses. We have to have transportation. That's what a city is all about, to bring people together. And we can't risk that. We cannot risk that on a thing which, we've seen how much money some of the developers have made in the high-rises. Okay, I'll leave it.
Thank you, sir. Laura? Just a quick comment from Laura before you start, please.
So I think that perhaps what's driving the height of the towers is the need to generate revenue in order to make the stands and the event center more viable. Whether that does that or not is not a question that I can answer. It is a question that we all need to consider and a question for our councillors. There is no denying that there needs to be some increase in density in every area of our city. We do have to have density to accommodate more people. How we do that is something that we all have to decide together. That does not mean that, necessarily a 40-story tower is what's called for here, but in order to supply the housing needs that we have all over our city, and particularly the need for affordable housing, we do need to be able to consider the fact that additional density is needed.
Okay, ma'am, you're up. Next comment, please. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, because it leads very well into what I'm going to be talking about. My name is Irene Shimada. I've lived in this area in various locations for 50 years. The official plan calls for development near transit hubs. This area is not a transit hub. We all acknowledge there is no solution to the transportation problem here. The official plan seems to continuously not be followed. We are getting shifting proposals from OSEG. It seems to change every week. It seems to be a chimera of detail, a lot of detail, but nobody's looking at the big picture. So my question is, what are the other options? It seems like we're worrying about the nitty-gritty, but nobody is presenting another option. So I'm presenting another option. Tear up all the hard landscaping and plant trees. We will save $500 million in debt for the taxpayers of this city. The taxpayer land. This is what it is, the taxpayer land. It does not belong to renters or condo owners or stadium owners. Plant more trees here. Ottawa does not have a world-class park. It's shameful. Why are no other options being presented? Tear up the concrete, plant trees, reduce the heat island. Spend $419 million plus or minus of taxpayer money on equitable housing, improved transit to the suburbs, better contract negotiators, geothermal renovations. The list goes on of all the great things we could do with this $500 million.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, please. Please move right to the mic. We've got a lot of people waiting.
Oh, sorry. Hello? Hello? Okay. Now, I'm really disappointed that, again, we are sacrificing affordable housing for empty space. What do I mean? There are people stacked like sardines in shelters. Meanwhile, instead of building affordable housing, we're building condos that, it's only rich people can afford these, and they don't even live in them. It's an investment to them. We buy it, wait till the price goes up, and then we sell it. That's empty space. And on a tangent here, I proposed years ago that Ottawa should imitate New York City, which has a big homeless problem. They should have homeless people renovate abandoned buildings into affordable units, and then their salary, would be the units. You know what I was told? We can't do that. We're poor like Job. We're Ethiopia. We're not the Americans who are stinking rich.
Thank you, sir. Next comment, please.
I have two questions. I'll try to squeeze them both in. In the 60s and 70s and 1950s, television shows and teachers taught children the virtues of honesty, respect, hard work, duty, patience, and gratitude. And people get along because of those lessons. But nowadays, schools are teaching jealousy, separation, divisiveness, haste, anger. How will so many people live in such a small space? That's my first question. My second question is, as the city moves away from carbon fuels and toward renewable, where will the battery packs go to provide electricity to these towers? Because when the sun sets in the winter and the wind turbines stop, the people in those apartments will need energy. Those are my two questions.
All right, thank you.
I don't have answers to your questions, but I'm going to do question period, and I'm going to answer the question I wish you would have asked. Housing, we talked about whether it's a condo or a rental unit. 800 square feet, 1,000 square feet, $500,000 to get an apartment in one of these two towers. 6.9% 3-year fixed mortgage. Your rent will be $3,474 a month, according to the TD mortgage calculator. I don't think that's affordable. I'll just leave it there.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi. Yes, I've been associated with this issue since the beginning. So I think we're talking about the wrong policy issue. We're not really talking about Lansdowne. We are talking about OSEG. In any self-respecting program development and evaluation, one would be at this point saying the OSEG 1.0, it's not Lansdowne, it's OSEG 1.0 was a failure. Because the only policy objective, just a sec, the only policy objective of OSEG has nothing to do with Lansdowne. It's got to do with ensuring that taxpayer dollars support a profit stream to the private interests that are part of OSEG. That's the policy issue. The only reason we're here is because OSEG 1.0 failed. So we're not talking about Lansdowne, and my proposal is, and I don't understand why the city runs this way. We have mayors and councillors who are incapable of saying, we made a mistake, we need to go back and see why things didn't work out, and we need to look at options, as our other people have said. Why can't those words be uttered by our political leaders? And the first vote that councillors should be asking for is to vote on the OSEG model. Is that what we want to go forward for 40 years? And I'll tell you my opinion. You don't use taxpayers' dollars to guarantee a profit for private interests. That's not what taxpayers' dollars are about.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Hi. I want, first of all, to say that I know that in the right circumstances, I would be voted the most attractive man in Ottawa. Guaranteed.
I second.
And those circumstances, sorry, please, my moment. Those circumstances are that there are no other contestants. I don't know how OSEG got their prize, but I suspect I can follow that model. And I am interested in knowing, because you mentioned the other priorities that this city has, and they are serious priorities for every citizen here, whether the city of Ottawa has bothered to work out any sort of cost benefit or even cost figures for those other priorities, and if the city councillors might not press to have at least that information so that there would be choices to be made rather than one choice before this one goes any further.
Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks very much for your presentations. So many of the important points have been covered off. I'll just cover on a couple positives. So I've been coming here since I was a kid in the 1970s when the exhibition was here. It was just a slab of concrete, so it's come a long way. There are definite misgivings, and I agree with the majority of the audience here, and we can do better things, but there has to be an alternative. Doing the same thing over and over again is really the definition of insanity if you expect a different outcome. Farmers Market, 613 Flea, that holds this community together. I think it's two of the jewels that we have. You mentioned earlier that the Aberdeen was the jewel in the crown. I agree with you. Since I was a kid, that's the jewel in the crown. I would ask the city, what are you doing about it to insulate it and ventilate it for 365-day, around-the-clock use? Because if that's the jewel in the crown, it needs funding. And that has nothing to do with OSEG. Furthermore, I have relatives that live in Stittsville, Barrhaven, Almont, Manotick. When they come down here and they come to see an Ottawa 67s game, which we've been seeing since Brian Kilroy was winning, and we made the playoffs, and we won the Grey Cup, and we held an outdoor NHL Classic, and we now have a women's professional hockey team coming here. If we intend to keep them here, we have to encourage people other than that just live here to come to those events, but they have to have a place to come other than my street that's a one-way street, that's an unassumed road that has no parking. Because now we're diverting all the traffic to us in our neighborhoods. And I can't even get people to come to my house because bylaw comes on those special days on Thanksgiving, tickets all my family. I can't even get bylaw to actually ticket out here, actually. So the issue we have is supportability and a long-term plan of sustainability with respect to transportation infrastructure. You touched on it in your briefing, which is there are no changes to transportation infrastructure. That's the city's job, not OSEG's. And I'm looking for the city to have a long-term plan on infrastructure, and infrastructure that's cheap, usable, and consistent. I'm not saying it's the right answer, but a tram running up and down Bank Street every 15 minutes, every single day, is going to encourage people to get out of their cars. At the same time, it takes 10 to 15 years to get the mindset to change from a car to a bicycle. I'm one of the 5% or less that drive a bike in the winter. It's not fun here. It's not Holland.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, please.
Hello, my name is Catherine Knoll. I manage 613 Flea. Since 2015, I have organized the twice-a-month 150 vendor 613 Flea Marketplace at Lansdowne Park. The free-to-attend community event shines the spotlight on Ottawa's creative community, artists and creators, along with Ottawa's sustainable community, antique dealers and vintage clothing vendors. The market attracts 5,000 people to each event. It's an important income source for local artisans and vendors, helps generate revenue for surrounding businesses, and is a tourist attraction. 613 Flea is one of the events that adds to Ottawa's vibrant social fabric and makes this city a great place to visit and live. The Lansdowne proposal includes adding new condominium towers, a new event center, new retail space, and building a new Northside Stadium. In a nutshell, the proposal wants to bring more people down to Lansdowne. I think this is a commendable goal. Of course, people have to be able to get to Lansdowne conveniently, which is something the proposal does not address. Unfortunately, there is no LRT or even dedicated bus lanes that run there, so getting to the site by public transit can be challenging. In addition, if events are running concurrently at the proposed new event center, Aberdeen Pavilion, and the Horticulture Building, and possibly even the stadium, I honestly don't even see how the site can function. We currently, as 613 Flea, attract people from across the city and ask them to come from a distance on a regular public transit. Asking them to come from a distance on regular public transit is realistically not going to happen. Some can come by car, but with about the same number of parking spaces and much more demand on those spaces, parking is going to be problematic. I believe that the end result of this lack of access will be that fewer people will attend community events like 613 Flea, which means fewer vendors will participate, which means even fewer people will attend. You can see where that's headed. I also want to note that this wouldn't just be true for our event. It could be disastrous for many other small and medium events at Lansdowne. In addition, would it also mean that larger events in the new event center would have priority in the city-run buildings? Would community events like 613 Flea get bumped from the schedule? In addition, it's worth mentioning that we're concerned about the 7 to 10 year horizon for construction, which may greatly impact access and usage of the site. In summary, I'd like to suggest that Lansdowne proposal of attracting many more people to the site without a realistic transportation plan in place is something that absolutely must be resolved before the proposal moves forward. It's just common sense.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I was glad to hear some comments on transportation. I think that's a vital issue. I also want to recognize and thank everybody for this great presentation. It's been good. And I also want to flag that if our councillors are truly going to make this important decision within 3 weeks, that they have a really tough time to do it. It's overwhelming. So I just want to put those points out. I have 2 quick points. The first one is that the goalposts have been changed. This started out as a design where it was supposed to be revenue neutral, and everything was going to be stuffed into Lansdowne to accommodate this, so there's all sorts of jiggery-pokery to make that happen. Well, now that's not the case, so I think it's worthwhile looking at alternatives. Our mayor has been raising issues for alternative sites for the Senator's Place, Herdman, Bayview, whatever, and I think that would be worthwhile to think about for the new arena entertainment center because of transportation. So I really think it's worthwhile going back and looking at this with these new goalposts in place and looking at different alternatives. And the second thing I wanted to say is that I'm totally in favor of revitalization. I just want it to be done well, and I want it to be smart. I want our city to be affordable, I want our city to be attractive, and I want our city to be long-term sustainable. And I don't think this $500 million development will do any of those.
Thanks very much. Please proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je m'appelle Angus McCabe. Je suis le président du comité de parc de l'association de la communauté Le Glebe. I'm Angus McCabe, chair of the GCA's Parks Committee. The Lansdowne 2.0 report states in 2020, Morrison Hirschfield developed a $25 million 40-year capital repair and replacement plan for the North Side Stands and Civic Center to maintain the integrated stands and arena in a safe operating condition, and which even includes demolition costs after the 40th year in 2054. So to us plain taxpayers of Ottawa, here's what we see. The mayor and the rest of City Council's choice for the taxpayer right now is $419.1 million, or as we hear, almost $500 million now, versus $25 million. OSEG's choice is to adhere to an existing business agreement made in good faith with the taxpayers of Ottawa. But the new plan also removes existing park space at Lansdowne, calls for 770 new residential units beyond the hopes of anyone looking for affordable housing in our city. Does this new plan adequately address city standards for new park space when additional residential units are being built? The answer is no. The new revised plan creates 0.26 hectares of new public space, but this is more than negatively offset by the removal of 0.46 hectares of the existing grassy hill and burn currently overlooking the stadium field and green space to the east. Indeed, this truly unique, beautiful green space feature of Lansdowne Park, the sloping grassy hill from which to enjoy a game or event in the stadium with friends and family on one side, and a vista of the park's other existing green space on the other, is being shifted east, reduced in size by 50,000 square feet, and replaced by a 45-foot, 3-story arena with no green roof. All to replace a 10,585-seat arena, which we are told by experts could remain as is at a comparably minimal cost in taxpayers' dollars and lost green space, or replaced downtown on the Breton Flats. So the hardworking, reasonable, environmental, sports-loving taxpayers of Ottawa, the choice is crystal clear. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Please.
Hi, I'm Brandon Bay. I'm president of Make Housing Affordable. As a housing advocate, you might already know my feelings tonight. My wife and I lived in Capital Ward for the last 5 years, but even though we love this community and we're lucky enough to be among the more financially fortunate of our generation, we just can't afford to raise a family here and had to move away in the summer. And So I'm angry. I'm angry with the changes to the plan that cut so many housing units. I'm angry that with the loss of the third tower goes all the affordable housing that we were supposed to get here. I'm angry that it wasn't ever really affordable except in name in the first place. And I'm frustrated that the units that we're left with are just homogenous luxury closets in the sky that do nothing to help people in a core housing need and do nothing to help middle class families like mine live in this great community. And I know there's a lot of people here that might disagree and think the changes to the plan are good, that maybe we don't want those tall towers anymore, but you're angry because in place of the lost housing, we're not getting any new public space to use, or we're not getting any better environmental concerns to address the ongoing climate crisis that's parallel to our housing crisis, or you're just frustrated that we're in this situation where we're talking about developing Lansdowne again so soon after the last time. And that's my point tonight, that we got here because of aggressive bureaucratic compromise that chased half measures that left us with this unfinished non-park, non-community because we tried to please everyone. And there's no version of this plan that's going to please everyone, but there is a version of this plan that will please no one. And I think that's what the city's tabled today, and I think that's what we're standing in today. And we need to say with one voice, and I'm glad to hear from the comments tonight that we are, that no, this isn't good enough. We need to do better. Take it back. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hello, my name's Missy, and I think I'll be largely echoing the last comment. So really, one problem I see with this proposal, among the many that have been listed tonight, is the reduction in new housing units. As has been mentioned, the Glebe is one of the best neighborhoods in the city, and I think it's just really, really unfortunate that new housing to welcome new neighbors is being taken off the table here. The city is in a declared housing crisis, not to mention the declared climate crisis. So seeing all of these housing removed and all these opportunities for more density is just really disappointing. Generally, results from cities across the world have shown that construction of new, even market rate housing has reduced local rents. So even though the new housing themselves might not necessarily be affordable, other housing nearby may be made more affordable. And to follow up on that, it's really disappointing to see the specific affordable housing units that were proposed in this development be taken out. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert. I'm a local Glebe resident, practicing architect, and one-time volunteer on the city's urban design panel. I'm here tonight to express great sadness, disappointment, disillusionment. I don't believe we've learned anything from the mistakes of Lansdowne 1.0 and all of the debacle of the LRT. We're about to embark on the third most expensive capital project in the city's history. And I ask, especially the councillors here tonight, is this the best we can do? What I see before us is really poverty of the imagination. It's poverty of any kind of city vision for building something that is a legacy to the city. It's banal, it's insipid, and I really hope that we can do better. So my request to the councillors is not to vote for this project and to ask for a reset, to come back to a genuine consultative process that asks the city and the community what we really want, what we really need, and get back to a vision for Lansdowne, because this isn't it. And all along, when I've talked to city staff about this sort of headlong lurch down the same path, the constant response has been, this is council-mandated direction. This is council-mandated direction. So council can mandate a different direction for Lansdowne. Council can mandate a restart on this project and a coming back to a vision for the community. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Noel Lomer. I'm a member of Reimagine Ottawa, and our goal is to reduce developer control over council. And I'm here to ask you to do, each one of you, to do something very important. Call your councillor. What will turn this around is councillors' votes. There's a joint committee of the Finance and Planning Committee on November 2nd, and then the full council on November the 10th. Those votes will decide Lansdowne 2.0. Those councillors should hear from you, from each one of us. Call not just your own councillor, call 6 councillors, call 10 of them, email them, tell them not to vote for Lansdowne 2.0, to stop it. They can stop it, they can change it. There's another important issue to bring to your attention. 4 of the councillors who are going to be voting on these measures have received more than 70% of their funding from developers. Is this an ethical issue? Can they ethically make a valid decision on behalf of the residents of Ottawa if they've taken money from the developers who are running this project? Vote with your voice and call your councillors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just 1 minute.
Thank you, Noel, for your presentation. It's been a pleasure to work with you on some of this as well. I will respectfully disagree on one thing that I started at the beginning. Whether you like the principals or the developers in this city who are also citizens and taxpayers, under our law, they have every right to contribute financially or with a lawn sign or anything else in the political process. It is a councillor's responsibility or a candidate's responsibility to determine whether they want to or not take money from somebody who works for a company, is a developer, is the CEO. That is the right of the democracy in terms of some people's money. If they can't speak, they can't move. Their dollars are their proxy for participation. So I respectfully disagree with that, but other people may have a different point of view. So I just wanted to put that on the table. As much as I'm against this project and I think we can do better, I won't go there and slam people for making financial donations to candidates in a democratic process, because I don't want taxpayer funding somebody who I disagree with. So that's my point of view.
Next, please.
My name is Angela Keller-Herzog, and I've lived in this ward, in this neighborhood, for the last 30 years. I have 2 points. First of all, I think we are in a climate crisis, we are in a housing crisis, and the state of transit in the city is in crisis, and this $500 million does not address any of these crises. So I would accompany my comments to those have gone before me. Secondly, in terms of the councillors and this question, do the councillors have enough information to vote yay or nay? I think that we've heard stories where, because of the commercial confidentiality, councillors have gone into a room, asked not to bring a notepad or a pencil or a digital device, and they've been able to look at a contract but take no photographs. So I think the current contract does have to have exit clauses. What is the consequence of not doing the Lansdowne? What if the OSEG partnership wants to take an exit ramp? What are the exit clause terms? So I think that the councillors as a group should be having to ask for this information. Like, what is the consequence of saying no to this proposal? And be more informed.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for allowing this venue and the opportunity to provide feedback. I'm reminded under Lansdowne 1.0 that citizens and local business associations took the city to court protesting the sole-sourced project. Unfortunately, they lost, and we are here. And in it, the judge ruled that elected officials making stupid decisions was unfortunately not against the law. So, and what we found out in that court case is that the city manager had commissioned a report by Deloitte. They have an international group that specifically assesses sport infrastructure and public sport infrastructure. And the report to the city manager was this was a really bad project. And that report, which she found out as part of court proceedings, was never shared with council. So back to your earlier comment about the LRT report not being shared with council, we have a legacy in this city of elected officials making poorly informed decisions. And I think we are still right back where we were. So we have, when you think about what is impactful to Ottawa, we have a massive problem with transit, and transit is hugely important for an equitable city. People need transit. It's a climate issue, it's an equity issue, it's an employment issue, it's an education issue, and that has to be our number one problem to fix. The second one is affordable housing. I mean, we've heard it. Ottawa's no different. There are people who just literally cannot find housing in this city, and it contributes to homelessness. It contributes to the ability to have a vital economy. So when you look at priorities for the city, those are your two priorities. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Alex Cullen. I live in the west end of Ottawa. I'm not a Glebite. And I'm here as a taxpayer because I'm appalled by what I see in Lansdowne 1, Lansdowne 2, Lansdowne 2.1. Toby Sanger earlier, very early in this evening, talked about why do we have Lansdowne 2.0, 2.1? It's because 1.0 didn't work. Let's think about that for a moment. OSEG, Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, a for-profit private corporation, was given the stadium and the Civic Center for $1 a year, plus the commercial development and the revenues from that, and the condo tower, and they can't make it work. What makes us think that it's going to work better now? They're here asking for more money. It's like throwing good money after bad. So let's just think about one thing here. They're asking for, and you heard Walter say, it's not $419.1 million. When you add in the parking costs, when you add in the construction costs, we're over $461 million on a Class C estimate, which is only going to go up. And you have to ask yourself, you just had a report on LRT that says it's going to cost over $100 million to fix that system. You have a transit deficit of $39 million. You have a housing crisis. You have a climate change crisis. This is taxpayers' money. So why should nearly $500 million of taxpayers' money go towards propping up a private for-profit corporation when we have all these public issues to deal with? No.
Thank
you. My name is Isla Patterson. I live nearby in the Glebe. I just want to make one point that's not been mentioned here, that we have a promise from OSEG to only keep their teams here until 2032. So that is, if this proposal goes ahead, it is planned to have 7 years of construction, and I'm wondering how, when all the construction is happening, they're going to maintain activity for the retail and keep people coming to the games. That's the first point. The second point I'd like to make is that 2.1 came about because of 2.0 was designed to be revenue neutral. And when the city did due diligence, they found out, guess what? That it wasn't. So then we have 2.1, where the mayor has said, yes, we're going to have to fund this with our taxes because it's an investment. All right. If that's the case, and I'm not necessarily supporting that, if we need to replace the arena, let's make that decision first and then decide where to put it. Because it seems to me that if we really need a taxpayer-funded new arena event center to make the city more vibrant, as the Ottawa tourism suggests, we could put that on city-owned land by the LRT station. It doesn't have to be at Lansdowne, OSEG can manage that facility wherever it is if they're still in the partnership. All right.
Thank
so
you.
So that's my...
Thank you.
Hi, my name is JP Younger. I have two observations and a request for the city. One is that today precisely I drove along Montreal Road near Vanier and I saw a number of dilapidated, shut down houses and buildings, commercial buildings. And then I looked around and I saw that there's a lot of those. So if there is really an interest in investing in having greater density and social affordable housing, why not start there where there is actually along a bus route and badly needed in the area. But I think we all know that this is not really about affordable housing. The second observation is that I also saw today somewhere that someone wrote that with LeBreton Flats, we would be having 2 hockey arenas within 2 kilometers downtown, which is absolutely ridiculous. And, well, we will never have 2 big hockey events on the same night, so they could easily share that arena. So we only need 1 in the city, if any at all, frankly. And the request stems from my understanding that OSEG is owned by some of the richest men in Ottawa, among them a Minto co-owner Roger Greenberg, described by The Citizen and some years ago as one of the richest men in Canada, with a fortune back then estimated at more than $14 billion. So, frankly, my request to the city is start using give us back our park, start using our tax money wisely, and stop funding business projects of billionaires. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I might rock the boat, but I definitely get the feeling that some of us would like the boat rocked. So I want to make a very fundamental point. I hope that I'm accurate. It is my understanding that the land we now call Lansdowne Park was deeded by, I believe, a farmer to the citizens of the city of Ottawa for one purpose and one purpose only. So I have not memorized all these statistics or researched how to run a city, but it was left to us for one purpose: to be a park. And because I'm no expert on anything, I'm just going to defer to Sean Maynard. Is this accurate, Sean Maynard? That is the case? I can't hear you. Do you need to say it's okay? Is that a kind of a yes? I think it is. Okay. So, Sean, are you saying that it was fairly accurate what I'm saying? Because I'm not an expert. Yes, he's putting 2 thumbs up. That's all I can offer you. Okay. So I think it's time to maybe forget about all these details. They're kind of irrelevant, are they not? Which builder gets to make the most money? Which team is going to be here? The responsibility of our elected representatives is to follow the law and the legal aspects of this project. So, in my opinion, I don't think you can vote for this. So I'm just going to leave that with you. I'm also going to thank you because you have a very difficult job. We expect a lot of you, and we thank you. And thanks for everyone for coming out.
Good evening. My name is Christiane Millet-Alexis. Okay. Thank you. My name is Christiane Millet-Alexis, and I am a resident of the Glebe, a happy resident. And first, I would like to address the comment made by the gentleman in the pink shirt. Mr. Gentleman in the pink shirt, I'd like to make a comment to rebound on your comment. You mentioned that the developers were taxpayers. There are very few developers who are going to make a lot of money, and there are thousands of very honest taxpayers and residents of the glebe. And is that democracy if the voice of a few developers is more important than the voice of thousands of people in the glebe, sir?
The city council process is the city council process, and I appreciate the frustration and people taking their runs at Mr. Greenberg and other people. As I said at the outset, and I'll reinforce it, the numbers, the mechanics, the finances of this proposal should be cause for this to be resoundingly defeated at city council. And I think that taxpayers across the city, the thousands that you mentioned, les milliers et des milliers des contribuables, the thousands you mentioned need to reach out to, as Noel, I will agree with Noel said, speak to their city councillors across the city. This is a citywide issue. I hold no malice against the founders of OSEG, the principals behind the people who work for OSEG. They are legally participating in the democratic process, whether we like it or not. That is the democratic process. It is up to the 4, the 1, and the other 20 who are not here to make the right decision for this city, immediate, medium term, long term, and that's our job to try and convince them of that.
Okay. Another point I want to make is that the glebe is a very important part of our cultural heritage. The canal is by, it's a cultural heritage. There is a beautiful green space for our children and grandchildren to play, and I think there are enough buildings being built all around the city. I even don't know how they're going to be filled, because I actually invested in one building and we're losing money because I am an investor and I'm losing money because there are too many buildings being built. Why build some more and more for rich people on top of that? This is ridiculous in my opinion. Okay, so I think we should keep the glebe the charming place it is, attracting lots of people from other parts of the city who enjoy coming, shopping, and coming to the market on Sundays. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Hello, my name is Patrick. I'm a resident of a neighboring ward, and I want to see a better Ottawa. There's been some very thoughtful comments shared here tonight, and I'd be regretting if I did not add mine to that list. So I want to thank city staff, panelists, councillors for being here tonight. The mayor ran on a platform that $250 million was too much to spend on a citywide active transportation network. So you can imagine how much a $500 million expense is. It's a gut punch, right? So we're basically spending more money for less community benefit than the previous proposal, less affordable housing, retail space. I want people to live downtown. It's better for our environment and our economy. So you've established we can't make everybody happy, but yet it seems we're trying very hard to make the anti-tower folks happy. If you don't want towers, then I would suggest ending exclusionary zoning citywide and allowing for small apartments on every single lot in the city. Until then, we need to build density, and we need to build it in nodes. Every time we try to build in this city, someone says we need intensification where it makes sense, and thus nothing gets built. Even if these are luxury apartments, these are new neighbors who bring spending, benefit businesses, can frequent local shops. It also gives a potential to reduce commute times for people who might work or live in the area. And frankly, I can't afford a $1.5 million house in the city, but I can potentially afford a $600,000 condo. Most often the loudest are heard, but once it's built, people recognize that the fear-mongering is often overhyped and not as bad as it is made to be. A condo tower went up near me, and I live downtown, so it went up near me, and suddenly I've been living under the icy cold shadows of a high-rise, and it's completely destroyed my life. Of course, that's not true. I have great neighbors, many friends and family in my community that I've made all while living here. So, in conclusion, we have an opportunity to build housing for people downtown that reduces commutes, boosts local economy, and provides a better living space for all in downtown Ottawa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have time for just a couple more questions, or a couple more comments, I'm sorry. We do have to wrap up at 9 o'clock. And there may be a couple comments from our panelists. So please, two more. Please proceed.
Okay, I'll be very quick. Just two quick points. One is if I wanted to build two towers of 40 stories and 28 stories in Lansdowne, and I was a developer, I'd first come to the city and propose 3 towers at 66 stories. There'd be the hue and cry, and I'd get my 40 stories. So let's not be fooled about this. It's what happens all the time, all the time. The second point I want to make is the vote at City Council. I'm really pleased that there are 5 city councillors here. These are the ones that are either going to vote against the project or at least are open-minded. There are 19 other city councillors. If this project does not go ahead, that $500 million gets divided among them. They could each have $20 million for their communities. Let's go to them and talk to them about the projects that they're giving up. Because that's how they're going to change their mind. As they look at Lansdowne, it's a nice place to come to for a football game and other sorts of things. What they're losing is projects in their wards. 10 years ago, there was that awful crash in Barrhaven. For 10 years, the city has been saying they cannot build an overpass. They don't have the money. Let's remind the councillors around Barrhaven that they are giving up that overpass. And let's pick a few other projects in Orleans and other parts of the city and explain to them that every city ward is paying $20 million for this project. They are giving up a $20 million project in their community so that we can have the towers here that we don't even want. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
I really like Lansdowne as it is. My church is just down the road. It's a great place to come after church. They have really good salsa nights in the summer. But I do not like this project. They cut out a significant amount of housing, and that raised the cost even more. If we're going to be paying more, we should be getting more housing, not less. It would also be great to see better transit. People in this ward are complaining that the roads are already full as it is. People are running stop signs because they're frustrated, which is not a valid reason to run a stop sign, but that's what the staff report said. But if we want to get more people to Lansdowne, we need rapid transit in this area. We need bus lanes or a tram down Bank Street, and we need to make it safe for people to bike on Bank Street. And the parking that they're adding to this project, they have way too much parking, and they're paying over $100,000 per parking spot. We need less parking in the city, not more. My neighborhood in Mechanicsville, over half of the land is dedicated to parking. That's more land for housing cars than for housing people. And this council has voted for austerity. And if we're going to be cutting down our budget, we should be cutting down things that are not going to bring in money and investing in things that will, like rapid transit and more housing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm just going to ask Laura and Walter if they have just a 1-minute wrap each.
So, I think the main consensus tonight is that the main issue here is financial. So, we can argue, 1 second, please let me finish. We can argue between the people who want, 3 towers, 5 towers, 7 towers, 2 towers, no towers. There are many issues here that do have to do with the design of all of Lansdowne itself. Is it a park? Is it an exhibition center? Is it both? Many people of the people in this room were part of Lansdowne 1.0, and there is a long legacy of controversy with this particular project. We must all find a way to discuss this in a respectful way, but making our voices, our individual and our collective voices, clear. Right now,
all right.
So you see, here we are. These are all of the different issues that we are dealing with, and they are all important. But Can we even begin to afford contemplating this? So everything else flows from that. And with that, I'll pass it on to Walter.
So thank you for coming, and the passion in the room is very clear. I've tried to lay out what is in the documents that the city is going to decide upon, and then I've offered, and I hope to be very clear on what was factual and what was an assertion of my opinion. I think a wise opinion, just saying to myself, but my opinion whatsoever. I did want to finish with one thing. If you get a chance, other than the one-pager document 11, in the 39-page report that the E&Y called entitled Lansdowne 2.0 Financial Due Diligence, on page 17, just a couple of notes. One, expenses and expense growth, quote, EY's review suggests that OSEG's projections are optimistic given the inflationary environment and recommends slightly modified growth rates for better realism. In redevelopment considerations, and thanks to Neil for flagging this one, UI highlights that the financial projections for Lansdowne redevelopment project currently assume the City of Ottawa will cover the business interruption costs. That was the $23 million, although this is still under negotiation. If not covered, these costs could negatively impact the project's financial outcomes by approximately, guess what, $23 million. In addition, the project's cash flows are highly sensitive to construction delays, which are increasingly likely given the current supply chain challenges affecting stadium construction globally. These delays could result in further business interruption costs and have a significant negative impact on the financial distributions of the project. There is a lot to consider in the due diligence report itself, and coming back to, I think, my fundamental question that councillors should ask. There's 4 lines of business. 3 basically operate at the margins. They're break even, 150 for the Red Blacks, over 40 years, 150 million. Net revenues, retail revenues of $1.1 billion to make this project viable, to share the waterfall between OSEG and you, the taxpayers and residents of the City of Ottawa. We need better answers in this 39-page analysis, and I hope the Mayor and all of Council are open to that. November 2nd and 3rd, go on the website. Get your delegation heard. This is going to be a 2-day marathon delegation meeting. City Council needs to hear from you, and hopefully people who are watching at home and around the region. And then on the 10th, they vote. And once it's done and shovels are in the ground, if that's how this proceeds, it's done. So you need to make your voice heard, and I hope you do.
So just... We're just nearing the end, and I know you've been waving mainly green cards tonight, but just before we wrap up, couple of questions and for you. Do you support the Lansdowne 2.0 or 2.1 proposal going ahead as is in 3 weeks' time? All right, that's pretty unanimous in the room. I want to ask a second question. I understand the Auditor General is just starting an audit of the original Lansdowne project. And the question is, should City Council defer its decision on Lansdowne 2.0 or 2.0 until after it receives her report? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, for sharing your ideas, your comments. I want to thank all the volunteers who helped put this on. I know there are many in this room. And I want